we're gonna have a conversation about building new art market systems in order to get women into the art market. I think that, well, first of all, I'm Hall Rockefeller. I'm the host of the Matronage Salons here at Future Fair. And the Matronage Salon is a space designed to open up the eyes of the potential collector to the brilliance of women artists and try to encourage women to collect the work of women artists. So I think one of the things that is such a barrier to entry with the art market is a lack of education and knowledge, and certainly a high price point. So I thought it would be great to bring a conversation about that very first step in collecting, and talk about the process of buying prints. So I'm really excited that we have here the the brains behind Phillips Dropshop, Jarrett Anistranski and Chris Miele, who are developing a series of contemporary prints of contemporary artists who are creating high quality limited runs to create a different system, a different entryway into collecting. So I welcome you both.
Thank you.
Great.
And I would love to just talk about what Dropshop is, how it got started, and then we can talk a little bit about the sort of mechanics of it to get to a point where a new collector might purchase one of these.
Sure.
Sure.
And you might have to project.
Do you want us to mention our backgrounds or how we?
That would be great. Absolutely.
So basically, I have been a collector my whole life. I ended up opening a mid-century modern furniture store in 1993 in the East Village, and it lasted for 3 decades. And it was just constantly buying what I loved, and basically whenever I didn't, it would not sell. So I always bought as though I was going to live with it myself. And I think it's a good principle to think about, like, do you love it? Does it speak to you? But so that I got more and more interested in art, fine art, and segued into Sotheby's. And then I ran Kehinde Wiley's e-shop, started it from 3 products on to 50, and then this opportunity came up with Phillips to start an e-commerce for them. We both started at the same time. Jarrett's the business director, I'm the sales director, and together we do the whole thing. And with the engine of Phillips around us. So
yeah, less diverse background. I worked at Sotheby's for almost 8.5 years, so auction world specific, understood sort of like the inner workings and the machinations of that business, which was great. But when Chris and I joined last April, we joined Phillips, they just thought about this world of e-commerce and didn't know what it would be. And we spent 3 months studying what was out there. An old mentor of mine sort of said, in the art world, art history has been very kind to innovators and not so kind to imitators. So that's a really fun rule. But we almost used that within the exploration of the market, which was, how do we stand out? Plenty of marketplaces that list editions. There are plenty of editions publishers that don't know how to sell their editions online, or for some reason or another do not. And you have to email them and inquire, and it's a very manual offline process. And then there are many artists and fashion labels that do a drop-based model, but it's very sort of instantaneous from a drop perspective. Dropshop, being what it was, became this monthly at present, but time-based offering with an artist and partner in collaboration with Phillips. And a lot of what we do is we sit down to think about the edition size and, how, again, livability comes into things. As I look around, I honestly think the beauty of a Future Fair is much of what you see is going to be livable. So it sort of checks a really big box for us. And in this livability and edition size and price point, can you check out easily online? Maybe these other places don't sell online because the threshold to pay online for what they're offering is just too high and people don't feel like it's a no-brainer and it's more of a considered purchase. So we try to think about that, and then oftentimes we're studying markets based on, because we're Phillips, we have the sort of data behind the scenes of who can we sell, what do our clients want, and that's a really good starting off point. So that's a lot of Chris's world, right? Like, how do I reach out to people and make that really attractive offering and roster? And then my world is sort of like, we're fabricating. How do we fabricate? How do we make money? How do we still make it attractive to purchase? When somebody gets it, do they have to consider framing it, or is it ready to put on the wall? And sort of like all of these things that go into the mindset of collecting. So that's how we got to where we are, I would say. And then how we do what we do. I don't know if you want to talk about that next, but I'll turn it over to you and sort of the artist onboarding and the sort of consideration and representation of artists.
Yeah, we try to be very inclusive and really every month try a new medium. We don't want to just do prints or just do sculpture, so we're always trying to mix it up, material.
Right, you did an Emily May Smith sculpture, right?
Yes.
And was that the first time she had worked that way?
It was the first bronze that she did. She
Right.
made sculpture, but not in a bronze.
Right.
So yeah, and that's really substantial.
So it's also an interesting, it's not just taking an image that they've already made and, printing it out 100 times. It's actually, for the artist, they're engaging with it in a way that is interesting to them creatively.
Yes,
Yep.
and she really might have a huge sculpture practice now on her hands because
Right.
she really loved the process and it gave her the opportunity to try it out.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think that's we sit together all day every day, but a lot of it is sort of this like, hey, did you see that auction result? This person did that, and then sort of like, okay, well, obviously we will want to narrow down what we can do and when we will do it, but something beautiful about the time-bound nature of what we're doing is there's no competitive noise, right? So we got rid of the marketplace, and like I guess
dedicated projects.
in March we announced right before Freeze LA, but we had Micheline Thomas in March, and with Micheline we shot a video at Phillips in LA. But in that same sort of lead up, we were like, hey, what should we do for the image? And it's actually an image that she painted in 2023 that's one of the lead images for her first solo retrospective, and it's at the Broad in LA. So we made a collaged edition of that. So one, Micheline Thomas is amazing. Two, we could bring her directly to our clients and engage with her following. Three, it's something that everybody is going to see when they set foot into the Broad, which is amazing. So it's sort of like the other sort of matrix that we have when we're thinking about what we offer. It's like edition size is great and all that, but it's like, is it instantly recognizable? Like, you don't want a B-rate image from like a great artist and like phone it in. And I think the beauty is, we were chatting before, it's like when it comes to art in general, like it doesn't feel great to be sold to, but like when it comes to editions practices, whether sculpture or whatever, like it should be something that you purchase because you like it. And sort of my rules are, you like it, you want to live with it, you can afford it, and you've learned enough about it to really feel comfortable buying it. So like you're staying informed and you're understanding, has the artist been in major collections? Have they had great exhibitions at galleries and museums? Where did they graduate, if they graduated? Are they self-taught? What's the story? Do they have staying power? Like all of these things, and like that staying informed bit. And we come back to that a lot, sort of when we debate. It's like they've only had success in the last 9-ish months. That's great. We hope that they continue, but we also don't want to be seen as opportunistic. So I think that's also very, very difficult in what we do.
It sounds like that having this model, which is not intuitively an auction house thing, to produce editions and sell them in a drop as drops. That's of course not bidding at auction, but it does make sense, I think, sort of twofold, that you have not only is the auction house sort of a more accessible entryway into the art market. I think there's a reason a lot of collectors start with an auction and then move into the gallery world. It's because the prices are there. What the sort of the information is there. It's very easy to engage with, register online to bid, that sort of thing. But also because it makes sense to be within Phillips, because you do have this understanding. And I think an early collector, there's such a nervousness around what is art worth, and because it's so informed by what the data Phillips has, it feels like, okay, I understand how this is worth something. I understand that Micheline Thomas has this in her retrospective. That's a museum. It all sort of works together. So it reduces those anxieties that I think the early collector might have.
Yeah, yes. I think there's beauty in that, but then there's also this sort of really remarkable thing, which is the seasonality of the auction world. Like, very few people, aside from Old Masters Week at a few houses in January, like, are transacting with auction houses in January and February, right? It's like your curve, like on the business side, when it's is like our curve would be below the line in January and February, start coming back up in March, and then you have April and May, and then the summer everybody goes quiet, they're on vacation. You start coming back September, October, and then November is like your marquee moment. What this allowed us to do is engage with all the clients who show up in May and November off cycle. And from a client engagement perspective, that's great because one, they're oftentimes well managed but seasonally, and this gives you a touch point. And two, they're oftentimes voracious collectors, and you just now have another reason to reach out to them and offer them something. And especially when it comes directly from the artist, it feels important.
Yeah, we try to give collectors access to the artist through the videos and through, just the collaborative social media engagement, and it's bringing the voice of the artist into an auction house, which is normally not there.
Right.
So.
And in the lead up, right? It's
Yep.
like many times, like with, we worked with Renee Cox as a photographer in September of last year, and with her, it's sort of like, okay, what's our crossover audience? Do we have photographs? Do we have black figuration? Do all of these other options? And we pull this list of hundreds of people, and Chris gets the pleasure of engaging with them. And they're like, thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah.
Like,
Keep me informed. Let me hear more. You're not bothering people. They seem to really want to know what's coming next. And and sometimes when I'll do outreach, there might be one left of an edition, and they can, they know that can know it's available. So yeah.
Right. So talk more about doing as the salesperson for Dropshop. Talk about the demographic of the collector who is engaging with Dropshop. What gender? How many of them are first time buyers or first time clients of Phillips?
Well, so 60% of our audience our collectors are new to Phillips or have been there but haven't transacted before. So
it's an entry point.
It's really entry point, and it's a nice mix of the artists following and Phillips following. So it's if we don't feel like we really have the audience, it's a little riskier, but we've done it and we're going to keep doing it. But we try to be very informed so that the artist has a good experience and it's sells out, and because it is time based. So
right.
Yeah, I think that's also something that we debate all the time, right? It's like, you could probably push price on a few things and maybe make more of them and make it seem like they're really going to make a ton of money, but like the honesty, I think, is what's come back from a lot of people. Like, artists with auction houses, when you think about the public relationship, like, there are many artists who have very sort of like freshman, sophomore work collected early in their career by people through galleries, and like they're just paying their bills, right? So they're happy to spend their time creating and just get that sold, and then 5 years down the line the collector sees the return. What we're doing here is the artist benefits. The artist always gets the lion's share of Dropshop proceeds, right? That's first and foremost, regardless of who he or she
And that's
is.
amazing because
Amazing.
obviously auctions are the artist doesn't get money, so
Right.
it's wonderful that they do.
And they get a resale royalty as well. So basically, anytime you buy on Dropshop, and if you decide to sell it later down the road for any reason, the artist gets 3% of the as a resale royalty, which doesn't exist in the U.S. right now.
That's amazing.
So we've been called
Equitable
and authentic by artists, which is like a
Right.
Civilized.
and civilized as well.
That's a great
You know,
adjective.
words that you would always hope to be called, but like
Right.
when you think about this sort of wall that has oftentimes existed between the two. So I think that access has been very appreciated. And I think, the idea of like the artist voice, like almost every project is written in the artist voice or has a quote that's attributable to the artist about why it was created. And you learn more about the practice. And it just feels, it feels relatable. Personally, from an editions perspective, like that's what I like anyway, because I'm never going to be able to afford that painting, but I can live with the work, right? So like if I like it enough, I can live with it. So it is like you asked about entry point earlier. It's like this is old data, so don't quote me on this. But when I was at Sotheby's, when we were doing this is probably 7 or 8 years now, we were looking at prints and multiples, and the average prints and multiples purchaser that was not a managed client coming back season came back every 2.4 years. And we were like, well, why? It's because, one, many of these people don't have large homes. They may live in apartments or flats that aren't that big. But two, it's what's considered or called a considered purchase, right? It's like spending over $5,000 on something you're going to live with. Like buying editions and prints and multiples, like you're not going to oftentimes buy these to assume you're going to see a 5-fold investment, right? So it's like those people are going to buy them to live with them. And the importance for us is like onboarding, getting these clients into our ecosystem, and then having them feel appreciated. We've really only since August had 5 repeat clients, so the 60% new is amazing. The 5 repeat is interesting as well because not every work you offer is for everybody, and our average edition size is
30.
30.
Yeah.
They're not big editions, so it's like you're not.
And how many artists have you produced editions with?
We've done 8 drops.
8
drops.
Yeah.
8 so far, and 4 of them have been with female artists.
Fantastic.
Our most recent actually was with Kent Monkman. He's an Indigenous artist from Ontario. Our next is a ceramic artist, actually, a non-binary ceramicist. He was born in Korea. They were born in Korea. I'm sorry, in Korea. Adopted by a family in Tennessee, so grew up in rural Tennessee, and actually just last month 2 months ago, was awarded a residency in Korea, and it took. So as an artist, they went back to Korea for the first time in their life. And then next year, which is really cool, they'll go back for an entire year residency. So it's an exciting thing because I think we're actually learning about the artists as we go.
Yeah. Very much so.
So yeah. But I think I hope that we're inclusive, but also showing variety because that's ceramics. We had a hand watercolored etching a month before with paintings. We've had a drawing, 2 sculptures in bronze, photo, collage, silk screening,
and ephemera.
So property from the estate of Jean-Michel Basquiat that was created in his lifetime. The pressings of bebop albums that he had made in 1983 directly from his apartment from the estate were sold. So
it really appeals to a wide variety of collector or person who's interested potentially.
So the low repeat doesn't surprise me.
Right.
I'm more happy about the new.
Right.
Really.
Right.
That entry point.
Yeah. I would love to talk. So much of what what Less Than Half is, what Matronage is, what is maximizing the amount of people to get into the art market, the amount of women getting into to collect women artists, and so much of doing that. And I don't want to stereotype women's characters, but certainly I feel like, at least I can speak for myself, that I want to know. I want to know what's going on. I want to feel educated. I want to feel like I have the tools, when I go into a situation. So if we could talk about, just the basics of collecting editions, collecting prints, collecting. How does one know that they are collecting something that's authentic, that is, actually of some art historical value, that is, an open edition versus a limited edition, artist proofs, all that sort of stuff would be great, just to get the basics out there. And yeah.
There's great debate here. So one side of the coin is printmaking makes things affordable.
Right.
The other is so many master printers exist where if you sit down with the artist, and many artists who graduated from substantial programs have some kind of printmaking background or editions background because they view it as a great way to pay the bills while they're developing their practice. You can run something like a digital pigment print or an archival print or a giclée, call it whatever you want, and if it's a representation of the image you couldn't otherwise afford, I see no issue in that. But I think when you go to buy it, you should be informed that that's what you're buying, right? Is basically when the artist in his or her studio took a photo of that work as a high resolution image, they just prepared that package for output in the same form on paper or canvas. Many artists have done it. Nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't have mastery in it. So I think like in the art historical canon, like it's difficult to say. Picasso was prolific, right? Like Picasso ceramics 20 years ago, you probably could have picked up for in the hundreds to low thousands of dollars. And in the last 5 years, like the things have been like just people decided that they wanted, even though some of them were in the hundreds in editions, like they just had this voracious appetite to collect. So it's like periods may emerge where like that medium or materiality comes in, but
And are those Picasso editions, were they touched by his hand?
most of them probably were not.
Right.
So that's the thing. Like many people are like, "Oh, that's just a print or that's a reproduction." Like,
But they were produced in his lifetime.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I
So
mean, he lived
yeah.
to what 86 or something
Yeah.
crazy like that, right? But yeah, I mean, it would be his concept. It would be whatever was directed. I mean, many artists practice that way in their studios now for painting. Right, so I think that education and that stay informed sort of rule in my collecting category
Oh yeah,
is like,
you have their three
you
tenets.
know, like that's it. It's like, yeah, coming back to those three I said earlier, it's like staying informed and learning. It's like,
Yeah, but repeat the three.
right. Well, so it's like,
yeah.
am I informed in general? It's like informed in what or by what? The artist. So you can follow many artists on social media now, right? That's beautiful. You can look up artist biographies, but you can also use auction data. Like many people are like, hey, you know, is the auction world or secondary market good or bad? You know, go to a show and there could be 1,000 people at the opening and there might be red stickers next to everything, but you may never see a price. You may never see the work of art again until it comes to auction. If it comes to auction, you never know. So there's validity in sort of that auction world. So, you know, staying informed for me is that. Plus, there are great podcasts out there. There are great newsletters out there. There are great art sort of media outlets out there where you can learn about shows. And, you know, the other is it's free to walk in the door at Phillips to go see the
There's
auctions.
an amazing exhibit right
Yeah,
now.
you
It's
can
opening
walk-
tomorrow.
Like the next 2 weeks.
What's up at
It's for the evening sales.
So
day and
the May
evening.
evening sales at Christie's, Sotheby's, and Phillips, you walk through the front door and it's free, and you're going to see Picassos and Magrittes and Basquiat's and
Any women artists in there?
Actually, yes. You know, you're going to see probably great. Do we have a great Joan Mitchell? There.
We have a Frankenthaler.
Helen Frankenthaler. So it's like you're going to see these like museum quality works that when they come out and you've never seen them before, that's amazing. Then you also have this. I guess what you're also going to think about in this like sort of what's free and accessible to me is like going to a gallery. You can walk in the door, right? So it's like that staying informed bit is just like putting yourself out there, and some gallerists won't answer questions. Some gallerists won't even be around to make themselves available to you. Obviously, that happens everywhere. But I would say the beauty is like we say this when we try to approach artists. Like, what's the worst thing they're going to do? They say no, not respond. But like without asking the question, you're not trying to learn. So yeah, like education's a big thing. Staying informed's a big thing.
In terms of just prints or multiple of their works on paper, always asking to see the works that are in the back that are often a show will be hung with paintings, but
Yeah.
you're able to actually ask to see something that's in the flat files, and those can be much more price accessible from a price point.
Yeah, and I think that paired with just taking, if you went to a show at a gallery and like going online and like searching for the artist name plus editions or prints or whatever, like there are, as we like our research, like you've purchased from a slew of online, like
Yeah, I mean, I was in the print market before, always collecting prints. So most of my art is prints, but I collect. I mean, they do have resale value. Like I can't part with any of them because I like them so much. But that is one of the. Do you love it? Can you live with it? Do you want to live with it? And then you see the artist get so big, and you're just so happy that you have it. But anyway,
Is that how you started? I mean, you said furniture, but
yeah, I was furniture. Then I went into manufacturing furniture. We also represented emerging artists and had shows of tapestries and
tapestry versions of work that existed, or
no, like original tapestries by Jan Yours. We worked with the estate for 10 years, and so I ended up getting a big interest in fine art and textiles, and yeah, so it's just started to transition out of that after, but I think that just learning, I feel like I have an idea of how people collect, and then I started to collect prints, and so we were very familiar, both of us, with all of the competition out there, counter editions, Avant Art, Henny, all of these great printmaker,
Exhibition A is another great one.
Yep, I bought a lot from Exhibition A.
Right.
Ceramics I bought from them, and yeah, so we, it's so nice to be able to now be kind of working with the artists and doing that.
Yeah. The Exhibition A, maybe in 16, 17, had an Emily May Smith edition that came out, very affordable. They hit on Shara Hughes in probably 2017, 18. Like they've been very good. Like, so even if, again, staying informed, you subscribe to them, like you might get a lot of emails, but you'll see some things you like, some things you don't.
And how exciting to be able to, I mean, women artists, contemporary women artists are very hot right now. Certainly in 2022, there was woman after woman. I mean, I think the market was basically just, all the headlines were amazing. Records broken by women artists. So to be able to live with a work by Shara Hughes or Emily May Smith or Renee Cox, I mean, McLean Thomas, all these names that are, it just, of course, we all learned about, Benjamin's aura and everything, but truly to have a work that is that person's work that they were a part of producing is, and to feel like you're participating in contemporary art, it's a wonderful thing, and it is the energy, I think, that a new collector needs. I think once you get a little taste of that, you want more. So it's just another wonderful way that prints can sort of like ensnare you, bring you in.
I wrote to Deborah Roberts during the pandemic, and I asked her if she had any prints, and she sold me a print.
Amazing.
That's
she's like my favorite artist.
Right.
So
just follow people, reach out.
Yeah. I've done that I do that often. DM an artist, ask them, knowing that a painting or a sculpture wouldn't be accessible, but asking for any prints or drawings that are available. It's a really good. I think the previous panel that was here today was talking about Instagram being the tool, and it's true.
It's funny. I have an artist friend who recently graduated from SCAD, and she had all these pet pictures in the middle of her Instagram. She hates Instagram. I'm like, you have to have your professional,
Totally,
because it's a tool.
Do you want to produce a print with Deborah Roberts or an
Oh,
edition?
Totally. I write to her every 6 months.
Right. Just wear her down a little bit.
I wrote to her before we were live. I mean, that was the
Right.
hardest thing, was trying to convince people to do it when they didn't like auction houses to begin
Right.
with, and they also didn't know what it was or what it would look like or if it would be successful. So, so grateful for the artists who dove in with us in the beginning, and now we have something to show. But it's still hard because they're most of the artists that we would love to engage are so busy.
Right.
They have solo shows coming up.
Right.
They have back-to-back engagement, so just catching them at the right moment. So
it's also the world of representation and agency. So like something really interesting that came out of working with Nicolene on the project was she invited us to speak at her artist residency at Pratt. It's Pratt Forward, and it's becoming Art Forward. And within her artist residency, she's teaching artists how to represent themselves as they come out of school or as they sort of develop their careers. And a huge word that came out of it was agency, right? Like many times artists will be engaged, coming out of SCAD or coming out of RISD or coming out of Yale with an MFA, and they get a contract put in front of them by a gallery, and then all of a sudden the gallery owns the output. And that may be great at the beginning, but then all of a sudden, if you're handcuffed, like you don't have the right to produce your editions, but you're at a gallery that, I used an example at a discussion we had yesterday. Like, there are some galleries that have one physical presence as a brick and mortar. They have 12 artists on their roster. They give you 8 weeks of programming, 2 weeks to set up and 2 weeks to break down. That basically goes into 3-month segments, right? So you get 4 3-month segments in the year. Plus you've got some summer closures and holiday closures in the winter and summer. That means 2/3 of the artist roster, the gallery that you're going into, is not producing for a show that year unless there's a group show or unless they're showing at a fair. And if in that agreement you're lacking agency over freedom to collaborate or create editions, you're beholden to somebody. So I would say like that, while we're not artists and creators, is something to think about, where it's like when you're collecting, it's like I've seen that work, but maybe I haven't seen it in 2 or 3 years. And is it because the artist had a great freshman showing but hasn't had the opportunity to show again? Or is it that people didn't want it and the show didn't sell out but it wasn't well known? And sort of like, how do you really know? So I think that following, it comes back to staying informed and understanding what they're doing. It's a tricky world.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all model, and I guess it's also, that's where we come into pricing a lot, right? Which is like, can you stretch another $1,000 out of something? Probably, but does it turn away 15% of your 60% of your new clients who feel, with Nicolene, there's a stat over here, women artists make up 15% of U.S. museum collections. Yeah. Something very cool with Nicolene, right? We had an institution reach out to us saying that they've really wanted to collect a Nicolene Thomas and add it to their collection, hadn't had the means for a unique work, and were waiting for the right edition to come out, saw it, and acquired it. So now one of the works from the edition that we produced is going to be in the permanent collection of the museum.
Fantastic.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
There's provenance for the work, for the edition, but also like you made that institution happy, and they got to acquire a great contemporary female artist. Like all of the things we want to talk about here, but like when they wrote to us, it felt like we were like achieving somebody else's dream.
Right. Yeah.
Fun,
Yeah,
right? It was.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I called this talk "Building New Art Market Systems," and I think that is what you're doing. Of course, it's additions have existed, but in the way that you're doing them is different, and allows for, when I talk about matronage, it's about creating creating a new system that works, because the current one leads to statistics like this. So it's necessary that we create something new, and as a way to change those numbers. So to have the McLean Thomas in that museum is, one tick forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really fantastic. Um, I think maybe we can, if anyone has any questions, we can open it up to questions, or even, yeah, go ahead.
My question was going to be about profits, but you sort of mentioned that in this system, it's very clear exactly how it was made, who made it. Can you speak a little bit to the difference between what Dropshop is doing and something like an artsy or a singular or something that?
Artsy is more of a marketplace, right? I mean,
Yeah, so artsy
there's
aggregates, right? So many things may be primary, many things may be through galleries.
some of it's just advertisement and it directs you somewhere else. I mean, it's really a big ecosystem in
Yeah.
itself.
They-
There
Actually,
is primary,
yeah.
there's auction, there's
Yeah,
it's
auction
a
is
it's
on
a
there.
lot going on Artsy.
So and again, at McLean's residency, it was interesting. One of the artists who had left representation at one gallery and was seeking new representation, many of the things that you see on Artsy are published through a content management system that's owned or paid for by the gallery, right? So you have Artsy, the gallery gets their account, they upload their art, it becomes available to list. Sometimes they put a price, sometimes you can inquire, sometimes you can buy now, sometimes you have to submit a request. All of those are different things. But this artist in particular left the gallery. The consignment agreement for the work with the gallery expired. The artist owned the work and still had it for sale and was going to offer it to somebody, but the person searched and said, oh, well, it's available through this gallery on Artsy. And now the difficulty is that artist has no agency over that work taking it down from Artsy because the gallery uploaded it and you have no access, so you need to try to get them to do it. So, but again, that's an isolated sort of thing, but coming back to us is like, we're not listed anywhere else. It's directly with the artist through us. When it comes up, we let you know. Our cadence, actually, we didn't talk about cadence.
Yeah, we do an announcement campaign for the first week, and then we tell everybody where to go, what time, and then we release the edition, and then it's up for the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then it's over.
Right.
Then it comes down. That was one of our the most apparent when we were researching was that we just kept seeing things that were 2 years old online. We just thought, oh, there might be just one left, but it just gives this appearance of being
Right.
dusty, and so we wanted to just have these projects, so it's just monthly or every 2 weeks. We're going to try doing a very short one, to see if we can, some artists don't need the whole month. Some artists are sold out in 1 hour or
Right.
one day,
Right.
and then it's just sitting there. So it would be a great opportunity on those kind of months to have emerging artists on the other 2 weeks. So that's what we're trying to do to bring more people into this.
Right. So are you, what is the future for Dropshop? Are you, I mean, you mentioned emerging artists. Are you using it as a tool to build build careers that maybe don't have auction?
You should say the
results?
statistic about
Yeah,
Phillips
oh.
has brought 200.
238 artists over the last 2 years debuted at Phillips as auction artists. No other house can say that. 238 unique artists debuted. I think what's interesting in this space is coming from the auction world, Phillips is so distinctly contemporary as a house, and doing what we're doing is even more forward thinking that it just felt right. So emerging, if we can make it make sense, because again, there's so much dedicated marketing and things that go into it where not everything can make sense. But perhaps curation and co-listing of artists that have a similar theme, and like that's a
Yeah,
sales
that's
thing that I'm not creative enough to get into, but
yeah. It was your idea to do something with textiles and do 3 artists that work on fabric or
Right.
textile.
so we're
Cool.
trying.
Yeah.
We're trying. So it's we're in the spirit of no bad ideas right now.
Right.
And it's better to learn as you're developing.
And it's also the conversations with artists. One conversation leads to another, or an introduction, and you just kind of meander.
In,
We're an incubator space, really. We call ourselves, because anything's possible. Nothing's really a no. I mean, we have a cadence, but yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also we benefit from having a great group internally that we work with. So we sit with a committee once a month, and our committee is just thinking about the table that I sit around, right? It's Chris, it's our chief marketing officer, Amy Wexler, it's our worldwide head of private sales, Miti Hayden, it's our CFO, Annette Schweier, it's our deputy CEO, Amanda Loyakino, it's our head of product, Sam Schoenbart. So I'm outnumbered, and then we have our worldwide head of additions, Carrie Leibowitz. So he and I are the only two males that sit on this executive panel to review our monthly projects. So it's almost flipped internally, but in there we debate. We get the third opinion. It's like Chris hates it, I love it. I hate it, Chris loves it. Like this sort of and then
we almost never really we're pretty connected on what we both like.
But it's nice to have that as well, where it's like you have that third opinion.
Right.
It's like, it balances everything out. It's like maybe pricing's not quite right there, or 50 sounds like a lot to do in 21 days. How many artists have we had or how many people we've had at auction that wanted to buy that artist? Like all of those things that we use as our basis and we have developed have come from this sort of really deep knowledge of the industry internally.
And I will say, I found that when the decision makers change, that's actually the quickest way to get to real change. So having so many women be the third opinion, I think that's probably why you have parity when it comes to which artists that you've chosen. But I think that might be I think we're at 45 minutes. So thank you so much.
Thank you
both
for
of
having us. Thank you.
Great conversation.
Yeah.
Fun.
Thank you.